I'm John DeMerritt. Oh, but before we get going on that, I want to, now that we've gotten all the rules out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to Alaya Haworth, and she's going to give the introduction to my introduction. Alaya.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Bolinas Museum. I'm Alaya Haworth, I'm on the staff here, and I am the curator of our current exhibition in the main gallery of the museum, Marie Dern, The Art of Handmade Books. And this is a not to be missed exhibition. It is really quite beautiful. It shows Marie was a great friend of the Bolinas Museum, but also deeply involved with the creative community of the Bay Area, especially the handmade art bookmakers. And this exhibition really shows her creativity, her humor, her skill, and how many extraordinary people she collaborated with. The exhibition will be here until December 27th, and as you know, our exhibitions are always free for admission. And please go to our website to see more about it, bolinasmuseum.org. This is the first time that we, the Bolinas Museum, have done a viral event like this. And if there are glitches, please be patient with us. We're very excited about this. And we want you to know that on December 9th, there'll be a second one with the San Francisco Center of the Book. So don't miss that. Again, look on our website. And we're very honored to have John DeMerritt today. John not only worked extensively with Marie Dern, but he is just deeply involved with the bookmaking community. And we're very excited to have you share that community with us. Then he's going to give us a demonstration and hopefully inspire us all at home to get involved with this community and to create at home. So thank you to everyone involved. Jennifer Gately is hosting this originally, and thank you, John, and I turn it over to you. Are you taking it away?
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? That sound good? Amelia? Okay. Thanks, everybody. I didn't realize this was the Bolinas Museum's first virtual event. I'm honored. I'm a huge fan of the Bolinas Museum. It's a magical place, as probably all of you know better than I do. It's every time I go there, I just, at the end of this road at the water's edge is this fantastic, magical, inclusive museum. I really am a huge fan of the Bolinas Museum. So I'm so very happy to be invited to do this presentation, and especially about my friend and our dear friend, Marie Dern. I want to thank Alaya Haworth and Jennifer Gately, giving me this opportunity to talk about Marie Dern's work and influence. Thank the Dern family for putting me in touch with Alaya, James, Daisy, Fritz, and especially to James Dern for being so inclusive. I also want to thank Amelia Grounds here for helping out with the technical side of my presentation and monitoring the Zoomosphere while I spin my tails. Thank you, everybody. I'm just gonna preface my presentation with a few words and give you a sense of sort of the shape of what I hope this presentation will be like. It's Zoom, so time is sort of in flux, but I'll try and keep everything on track. It's also sort of, I'm in this room talking to myself, so if I start to spin out of control, Amelia will reel me back in, or Tom or Peter can help too. Yeah. I'm happy to see that Tom Ingalls has created some special typography for our day. The masterful Tom Ingalls, graphic designer and Sharpie magician. Yeah, it looks good, Tom. I'm so happy to be here with all of you, virtual or not, to talk about and remember my dear friend and colleague, Marie Dern. I'm sure many of you joining me knew Marie personally, and I look forward to you sharing your thoughts about Marie, her work, her legacy. Please feel free to post comments and questions in the chat space while I am presenting. At the end of my presentation, we can open it up to more informal discussion. I think Marie would approve of that. She was pretty chatty. I had a long and enduring relationship with Marie as a colleague and her bookbinder. And over the course of working together, we became close friends. I cherished our friendship as much as I did our working relationship. And Marie and her husband, Carl Dern, became what my wife, Nora, and I like to say, our models for living. Carl and Marie led an integrated and holistic life, studio practice, daily life, business, pastimes, cooking, music, meditation, and family life were all laid out on a beautiful, even plane, all intertwined, none valorized over the other. Marie worked with literary luminaries, Kay Ryan, Raymond Carver, Tess Gallagher, Bill Berkson, and she had an amazing ability to honor their work and keep her vision intact at the same time. That's a cool trick and very hard to do. I think she did it with humor. Marie was very funny, as you all know. She did it with humor, directness, and a certain direct, inclusive simplicity in her work. Marie's work with visual artists like Lanny, Geyer, Martha Shaw, Arthur Okamura, Inez Storr, and mostly her husband, Carl Dern, was equally impactful. Marie was very insightful in the way she paired her writers and her artists. Also a difficult feat, which can feel clunky and flat if not done well. I remember many a rambling business meeting at Marie's kitchen table in Fairfax with whatever artist or writer she was working with, lingering over grilled cheese and soup, gossiping, telling jokes, reviewing movies, petting the dogs, and finally easing into the work at hand. That's how it worked with Marie, and it felt inclusive and intimate, and it made good books. First you slowed down, then you got to work. Marie and Carl were deeply engrossed, as you all probably know better than I, with the artists and writers who inhabited Marin County, where they lived, I think, since the early 60s. It must have been such a rich and luxurious time hanging out with William Wiley, Cornelia Schultz, Richard Lang, Martha and Richard Shaw, Kay Ryan, Bill Berkson, and on and on and on. When I look at Marie's books, I think I can see the impact of the artists she spent time with, that sort of osmotic effect. Is that a word? Marie's books are heavily material and object-based, as much art objects as they are publications. Her humor is always at the forefront of her work, as is wordplay, puns, and aphorisms. I see those qualities too in the work of Berkson, Wiley, Kay Ryan, and certainly Carl Dern, all sort of riffing off of each other for years and years. Magical time. Under her imprint, Jungle Garden Press, Marie published many important works, almost always in collaboration, in small numbers, printed on her trusty C&P press, sparsely employing her favorite and beloved typefaces. I'm not the person, certainly not, to give you a broad historical overview of the Bay Area book art scene. There are many of you here today that probably have a much firmer grasp of our history than I. I hope we can hear from you at some point today about that. I'm too intimately involved with it, but I will say that if you are interested in the world of handmade artist books and you live in the Bay Area, you're lucky, because the Bay Area is arguably one of the most important and vital hubs of artist book production in the world. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. There is a community here that is rich, diverse, prolific, and long-lasting. Marie was involved in many communities here. She completed her MFA in book arts at Mills College. She attended UC Berkeley. She was a board member of the Book Club of California and the San Francisco Center for the Book. And I think maybe she was a board member at the Bolinas Museum. I think I just read that in her bio. She taught at the San Francisco Art Institute, where she recommended that the head of photo Jack Fulton hire me as an instructor there years ago, and was a longtime exhibitor at the Codex Book Fair. Mostly though, I think about Marie and her studio practice. Maybe that's because I'm such a creature of the studio as well, and it's where all my great successes and growth have happened. That's where my relationship with Marie thrived. Okay, here's how it's going to go. Introductory remarks, done. So, and again, time's a little fluid, but we'll try and keep everything on track. First thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you a few of, I'm just going to sort of show you a few of my favorite Jungle Garden Press publications, a lot of them bound by me. Second, I'm going to show you a really neato slideshow of some of my favorite artist books, some made by book artists, some by artists, some by photographers, all of them based in the Bay Area. After that, I have a few special guests that are joining us that are going to talk about, they're going to chat with us about different aspects of Marie's career and work. Then we'll take a real short 5-minute break. And then I'm going to crack out some crazy video tutorials to show you, if those of you want to make your own books, maybe this will pique your interest and show you some simple structures that you can try. All right, let's go. I brought out, rather than photograph them, I think books are just lovely to hold in your hand. So I just want to show you. And unfortunately, I have not been able, I don't know if anyone else has anyone else here actually been to see the exhibition at the Bolinas Museum? Charles, I'm sure a few of, hopefully some of the ones that the books that I show you, I know are featured in the museum, and you'll get a chance to see them a little more intimately and up close and off the screen. Here's a few of my favorites. Miracles, a great book that Marie produced with her old friend Martha Shaw. This is a really great example of Marie Dern's really sparse, playful, whimsical printing style with these great kind of Gakko. I think the illustrations were printed with a Gakko printer, which is sort of like a home screen printing unit that you can print with. Marie liked to employ classic timeless typefaces with whimsical and playful illustrations. Oh, this is when I messed up the sewing. Nobody's perfect, okay? Am I holding those up right, Amelia? You can see them, everybody can see them okay? One of my all-time favorite Marie Dern books, Not an Exit, Bill Berkson and Lanny Geyer illustrations. This is a classic sort of Marie Dern kind of, she loved to have things dangling all over the place. Sometimes I think I see a little bit of William Wiley's influence in a lot of Marie's structures, with things that are sort of attached and hanging on there and draped over. Also in the playful, sort of whimsical, pun-based work that she did. A lot of Wiley in there. Berkson said that he wanted this, he said, I want this book to look like a roofing shingle, or like a asphalt, like a street, you know, he wanted it to look like slide it off the street. So we had a paper maker in Minnesota called Cave Paper, made this paper for us. Did this kind of classic medieval limp structure. And again, sparse, classic, simple typography using classic typefaces. I'm no type expert, so I'm not going to diverge too much on that. And then these just really great, super minimal, you have to look for it in these super minimal illustrations by Lanny Geyer. All the illustrations were printed letterpress by Marie on her super cool Chandler and Price press. In her, I'll read you a little selection. And and Berkson too, as you all, some of you probably know, was a great fan of the pun and found language, and a great connector between the visual and the poetic. Whenever I see woods and fields, warriors huddle, dart and scatter, running, shooting, and/or shaking their clubs. It's so good. Another writer that Marie collaborated with a lot was Kay Ryan. Yeah, she was the poet laureate of the United States, among other things. There's a great book she did called Believe It or Not, with illustrations by Carl Dern, riffing off the Ripley's Believe It or Not. Believe It or Not, so she would take a quote from Believe It or Not, and then there was a little prose poem that she would compose about it. This one was called, there's another good one. The walking stick insect of South America often loses an antenna or leg, but always grows a new appendage. Often nature makes a mistake and a new antenna grows where the leg was lost, from Ripley's Believe It or Not. And Kay's sort of poetic response to that is, eventually the most accident prone or war weary walking sticks are entirely reduced to antennae, with which they pick their way sensitively, appalled by everything's intensity. Maybe my favorite Jungle Garden Press publication of all time, Pastimes by Carl Dern. Not many married or partnered up couples I know collaborate as well as Carl Marie did, or as effortlessly. This is a series of selfies, as it were, by Carl. This one's called Studying the Earth's Gravitational Pull. Self-portraits, hand-colored. What a lovely guy. Practicing manual dexterity. You see the humor and the wordplay coming through here. Suppressing anxious thoughts. I think we can all relate to this now. Yeah. Funny, light, heavy, impactful, all at the same time. And it had this great kind of, Marie was a big fan of the exposed sewing sort of codex or long stick structure. I would have kind of big tussles with her about this because I didn't always want to do that with her books, but we had a good time fighting about it. Another one of, and this might've been, this is the last, I'll show you two more. This might've been my favorite, I think this might've been my favorite Jungle Garden book that I ever, or might've been the first one I worked on. This is a Magic Rabbit's Book of Applied Rabbit Tricks by Arthur Okamura, longtime resident of Bolinas, who I think we lost recently in the last couple of years. Was it maybe even longer than that? Berkson as well, he passed away recently. This was this great book. Arthur Okamura, as a lot of you know, was also an amazing painter and instructor, but also this incredible magician and sort of collector of parlor games and tricks. So Marie published a whole book of Arthur's that was all these different parlor game tricks. Like this one is how to spin a penny on a hanger. And there were all these black scratchboard illustrations that Marie had reproduced. And then the spinning coat hanger and penny. And here's instructions. So it's sort of half artist book, half magic manual. And I remember at the publication, you know, and there's all that stuff like how to stick a dollar bill to the ceiling of a bar, you know, how to, you know, pick up a quarter with 3 matches. So I remember at the publication party, Arthur performed all these tricks. It was maybe the best publication party I ever went to in my life. All sewn with this Japanese stab sewing. And then we made this box. We wanted it to look sort of like a top hat with a bouquet of flowers bursting out of it. Came out pretty good. Then finally, this one, this was just a really sweet project, also by Carl Dern, Winter Orchard. Carl found a wine box maker in Napa to make these boxes for him. And As you know, Carl was primarily a sculptor. Here's one of his wire sculptures of a tree from the winter orchard. And then a beautiful accordion book of the orchard. No words. And it's endless. There's no end, no beginning and no end. And it's very architectural and sculptural. Very much Carl Dern. All right. That gives you kind of a sense of what you'll be seeing when you go to see the exhibition. I'm sure many of those books are included in the exhibition. Maybe some of them aren't. Maybe I showed you some unknown gems. Amelia, are you ready to turn over the controls to me?
Absolutely. Let me do that.
Okay. Can everybody see my slide presentation? It looks good. Is it in full screen view? I'm going to go through. So now that you've sort of seen the kind of books, the kind of handmade books that Marie made, I'm going to just go over a short presentation of some of my favorite. And again, this is not an inclusive overview by all means. It's a much more subjective, personal selection of some handmade books that I thought were interesting by artists and photographers and printers and fine press publishers. Okay. Handmade books occupy a small corner of the publishing world. Handmade books or artist books, generally speaking, are published in small quantities and often incorporate laborious and time-consuming processes in their production. Handset type, letterpress printing, intaglio, screen printing, hand binding, and high integrity materials are some of the aspects of handmade books. What I love about the small press, fine press, and artist book world is that each press and studio is uniquely different, creating a product that only that studio can make. It's not unsimilar to recording studios. Every studio has its own sounds, impossible to produce anywhere else. Some presses and publishers are super old school, employing centuries old techniques and materials to make classic and enduring works. Some are employing more contemporary tools, using the array of digital tools available now, like inkjet printing, laser cutting, and polymer plate making. Others are making unique hybrid works that employ old and new, creating living works of our time. There you go. That's me in my studio. Double columns. A little bit of bookending, not necessarily history, but a little bit of just to sort of give you an idea, a sense of where this sort of book production idea comes from, the industries that it grows out of. This is the Planten Moretus Museum. It's a printing museum in Antwerp, Belgium. My wife's from Antwerp. I spend a lot of time there. This is my home away from home when I can't take it anymore and I got to get out of the house. I go wander the courtyards of the Planten Moretus and think about my life in books. Antwerp, Belgium, which focuses on the work of the 16th century printers Christophe Plantin and Jean Moretus. The printing company was founded in the 16th century by Christophe Plantin, who obtained type from the leading type founders of the day in Paris. Plantin was a major figure in contemporary printing. Look at that press room. Doesn't that picture alone, I could just stop my presentation now and it would make you want to go make books. Major figure in contemporary printing with interests in humanism. His 8-volume multi-language Plantin Polyglot Bible with Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, and Syriac texts was one of the most complex productions of the period. Plantin methods of productions are still in use today by many small press publishers. You can see metal type in its case is the same kind of type that Marie used in a lot of her books. In some ways, not much has changed in the way that books are made. It's from the Foundry. There's the Polyglot Bible. Amazing to see in person if you're ever there. The planted Moratus was just made into a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is encouraging to see last time I was there. On the other side of the production end of things, this is the new method bindery in Jacksonville, Illinois. I think this book was produced in the late 40s, a very typical library bindery. These images are from a promotional book that they produced called Bound to Stay Bound. It's in terms of book production, I've always had a deep fascination with industry and the uses of technology. And I'm in awe of anyone who can actually implement all this complicated machinery that goes with it. I don't think I could ever run a shop like this one. There's a great Where's Waldo aspect of this book too. I like the quality control, Madam quality control there. You can see like the way that, you know, this is not unsimilar to the way that some editions are still, you know, one step at a time, everything's done at the same time. There she is. Look at that brush. Quality control woman doesn't look very happy. Let's look at some books by Bay Area artists. Again, back to Not an Exit by Bill Berkson. I think this compare and contrast. I know the thrills and spills of jet lag, but dirt and grime, tell me about it. Right on. There's that roofing shingle. Here's another shot of the winter orchard. I thought I would just start with some Jungle Garden Press books. This is a book called A Thousand Several by Emily Mcvarish, one of the greatest book artists in the Bay Area that nobody really knows about. Amazing letterpress printer. All this work is, and also a designer and a writer and someone who sometimes works in collaboration with other writers, but primarily all this is self-generated text and all letterpress. Published by Granary Books in New York. This is a book by Lynn Hirschman, who some of you may know as a video and conceptual artist and sculptor. Conceiving Ada, published by Gallery 16 in San Francisco. This is a book called 1991. It was a ledger produced by the photographer Richard Misrak for an exhibition he had at the Berkeley Art Museum in 2011, commemorating the fires in the Berkeley and Oakland, devastating fires in the Berkeley and Oakland Hills in 1991. This is a ledger made that visitors to the museum could write their memories of the fires in. Hate is What We Need by Ward Shoemaker. Ward is a very unique, he's a painter and a sculptor based in San Francisco, and all his books are one-off hand-painted books. This was a book that he did of Trump quotes the last 4 years. It was picked up by Chronicle Books and published by them. There you go, that's relevant. Maybe we should place her with him. These are some incredible daguerreotypes by the photographer Christina Seeley that we produced as, we sort of wanted them to look like 19th century daguerreotype cases, except more contemporary. These are all photographs. Christina goes to the ends of the earth, documenting what's the word I'm looking for, Amelia? Animals that are going extinct. Sorry, I'm losing my words today.
Endangered.
Endangered species, thank you. Contemporary daguerreotypes, really interesting. And what's interesting about a contemporary daguerreotype is it's a mirror. So when you're looking at this endangered species, you're also looking at yourself. There you go. Open Sea by the really seminal photographer Jim Goldberg. You might know his book Rich and Poor. He also makes really interesting artist books. This was published by Steidl Mack. This was a book about immigration in Europe. This was a great book. I don't know what the title of this was, but this is by the photographer Megan Riepenhof. And this was a book that she exhibited at the Bolinas Museum a couple of years ago. And it was, I think these are cyanotypes, and it morphs and changes as it reacts to light in the environment. So it's a book that is, I don't think she stops it when she exposes it. So it's a book that's constantly changing. Amazing bookmaker. That was an amazing exhibition at the Bolinas Museum. Another a Bolinas denizen is Michael Light, photographer, mostly known for his aerial work of the American Southwest and man's footprint on it. He makes very large, oversized he publishes trade editions, but he also makes large, oversized handmade books in editions of 9. When these books are open, they're 35 inches high and 44 inches wide, so you can kind of fall into them. And he displays them on these big surveyor tripods. I remember once he exhibited at one of the first Codex book fairs, and he showed one book. I thought that was great. No table. There's Mike. That's probably what he's doing right up on the hill right now, communing with his book. The Helen Fragments. Was that book 4 of the Iliad, Peter?
Yeah, it is. Can you hear me say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Illustrations by the amazing Winifred McNeil. Beautifully printed and I think translated by Richard Siebert, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. And then we did this kind of crazy limp binding on that. We still have to bind some of those.
Yeah, I know. Have to live so long.
Watermark, also published by Peter Koch, by the great Richard Brodsky.
Joseph Brodsky.
Joseph Brodsky, I beg your pardon. Printed in Venice.
That's right.
Sorry, Fresnel's Tower by another, by your neighbor in Stinson Beach, Charles Hobson. Charles also makes very object sort of, books that are as much objects as they are publications, and who's someone who also who loves to collaborate. Anotaciones by Barry Lopez, also published by Charles Hobson, Pacific editions. Again, and I love these studios that they all kind of have their own sound or their own, every publisher, you can only get that sort of effect by that publisher. And Charles, this is, again, his things are very, very object and very object based. Andromeda, Imagine, Charles Hobson, Pacific editions. Look at that cool photo I took of that, Charles. I'll send you one of those. Exoticum by Richard the great wood engraver, Richard Wagner. He's based in Petaluma, who does this incredibly labor-intensive kind of printing called wood engraving, where he's carving away at these wood blocks to make these incredibly elaborate, evocative prints. This was all specimens from the Huntington Garden. Bone Black by the San Francisco painter Brad Brown, published by my wife and I, DeMerritt Pauwels Editions. This work was a combination of handwork and letterpress printing, kind of based on kind of Cagean chance operations. Vitamin K by Jeff Gow, letterpress printed by Norman Clayton, the great letterpress printer who's based in Ojai now, but who was based in the Bay Area in San Francisco for many years. This is one of my all-time favorite accordion books. The slipcase was, we hand stenciled that. That was fun. Here's an artist some of you may be familiar with. This is The Naked Anvil by William Wiley. This was published by Trillium Press back in the day, which then morphed into Electric Works. Richard Lang and his son, run now by his son Noah Lang and his wife Chris Lang. Here's another one by, you can sort of see where what I was saying earlier about Marie and maybe her sort of relationship and the way that she and Wiley sometimes I think riffed off each other. This was a project called California Dreamin by William Wiley, published by Magnolia Editions in Oakland. When Wiley came to us and talking about sort of doing the binding for this, he was just like, we wanted to talk about materials and stuff, and Wiley was just like, just use scraps. So we did. So the edition Verrier, every single one was different. I thought it was a great idea at first, but my studio looked like a tornado hit it while we were working on this project. And I want to round it up with 2 books by my lovely wife, Nora Pauwels, printmaker. These are etchings on silk. The first one is called Super Plants. And this book's called Moonlight. So there's a little, just a little brief selection for you. If you want to look at more, artist books in the Bay Area, there's some amazing collections that you may have access to. There's the Bancroft Library, where Ms. Grounds is employed currently. Special collections in the Bancroft. Mills College has a great artist book collection. Stanford University has an outstanding artist book collection, especially their collection of artist books from Cuba and California artist books from California. They hold many of the archives of our Bay Area artists. University of San Francisco has a great artist book collection, and the San Francisco Public Library, their special collection, has a great collection of books on books. Am I missing anything else, Amelia? Is that pretty good? Here's 4 things you can do. Once again, not inclusive, but they're the ones I think if you are interested in exploring more about our amazing cosmos of book art activities in the Bay Area, here's some things you can do. You could go to the San Francisco Center for the Book. You could take a class, or you can find a community. And you can learn how to use all this strange and wondrous cast iron equipment that was here before you were born, and it'll be here after you're dead. And you're just kind of using it in the interim. There's the amazing Aaron Fletcher showing someone how to use what we call this freaky piece of cast iron equipment called a job backer. You can take amazing bookbinding classes from these 2 like super famous British bookbinders. They come every summer. Dominic Riley and Michael Burke. I think they're here joining us today. You could learn letterpress printing from the amazing Macy Chadwick. And then once you learn that, you can apply for a residency at the In Cahoots Press and Artist Residency in Petaluma, of which Macy is the proprietor. That's a Vandercook printing press. That's what the majority of a lot of artist books are printed on now. If you got one, hold on to it. Or you can go to a publication party such as the wonderful Ward Shoemaker and his publication party for the Chronicle Books edition of Hate is What We Need, Trump quotes, with his biggest fan there. You could go to the Kala Art Institute, learn how to do some printmaking. You can learn how to do etchings. You can do lithography there. They have a pretty well, they've got a pretty good letterpress studio there that hardly anyone uses. So you can go over there and print away to your heart's delight. I love their funky type cabinets. So those are some sort of places you can go if you want to explore learning more about making books and becoming part of our amazing and generous community. You know, it's really great about, one thing that's really great about the artist book community, it's one of the most generous ones I know. And I think a lot of that is because there's like no money in it. So everybody is, you can ask almost anyone a question and they will tell you. And if they don't tell you a question, then they would be considered kind of a weirdo. And then there's a couple of just like amazing book fairs that you can attend in the San Francisco Bay Area if you want to go look at the extremely beautiful and impactful books that people are making around the world. They come here to show them to us. The first one would be the Codex Book Fair. Codex Book Fair was the Codex Foundation was conceived in 2005 by Peter Rutledge Koch, fine press printer who's with us today, and Susan Filter, paper conservator. Its purpose was to create an environment for promoting the book as a work of art. And they've succeeded at doing that. They accomplished this by bringing together the best of the best book artists and fine press printers from around the world to share their work, explore new and old concepts, and to start an ongoing conversation about the fate and future books as an essential art form. They did the first one, I think, in 2007 or something like that, Peter.
That's right.
And they do it every other year. And if you live here, hi, Susan, and then you don't go to it, you're missing out. It's the coolest artist book fair in the world. And it's getting bigger and bigger. You know, they're on a little bit of a hiatus because of the world situation, but they're going to come roaring back. I have no doubt of it. There's Marie Dern exhibiting front and center Codex Book Fair. And you can see the kind of sculpture up there. She is, like selling the leaves off the tree, as Marie used to tell me. And with another one of her just extremely charming, funny, and that looks like a book she could have done with Wiley himself. There's Marie with my charming daughter, Talia. Andy and Katie Rotner from Super Classy Publishing. Sadly, they just departed the Bay Area back to their home state of Ohio. Miss them. There's Ward Shoemaker showing some of his books. It's an amazing gathering of people from all over the world making handmade books. Peter's going to talk about it a little later today with us. There's the man with Marie herself. Aww.
Yay.
Another fair that you can, and if you're so inclined, another fair, if you want to see more like what the young kids are doing with risograph printers and Xerox and stencils and screen printing, you might want to consider also attending the San Francisco Art Book Fair. And that book fair, it's more model. If you've ever been to the Printed Matter Fair in New York or Los Angeles, it's more about publications and inexpensive sort of endless editions. It's sort of the other end of the spectrum from the fine press handmade book, but I think it has an equal weight and importance. The San Francisco Artist Book Fair features artist books, art catalogs, monographs, periodicals, a lot of zines, a lot of printed ephemera, a lot of tote bags, a lot of swag, and artist multiples. These works are presented by over 100 independent publishers, antiquarian dealers, artists, collectors, and enthusiasts. This fair is held at the Minnesota Street Project, and it's also supported by the wonderful Andy Rappaport, who also is a denizen of Bolinas. There's the scene, Minnesota Street Project. Noah and Chris Lang, proprietors of Electric Works. Noah's a son of West Marin artist Richard Lang. So this fair is more about publications rather than objects. Both really interesting fairs to attend. Just my assistant Emily looking really tired. Thank you. Okay. Any questions or comments while I catch my breath for a sec and have a drink of water?
Hey, Susan would like to make a comment.
Yes.
Yeah, Susan, hi.
Hi. Did everybody see The Bookmakers last night on PBS at 8 o'clock? Featuring Peter, me, John DeMerritt.
Great.
This is on there. Did anybody see it?
Yes, I did. It was great.
Okay.
Kathy.
Anyway, John is
Loved it.
with his big paper
Board
cutter,
shears.
board shears.
My baby.
Okay. Any other?
Yeah, and The Bookmakers is it's a movie directed by James Kennard, I think was his name.
James Kennard,
And,
documentary.
It's a documentary about handmade books, focusing on a lot of Bay Area book artists. It's really well done and really focuses on the makers, which I really appreciate. So it's well worth seeing. I think it's streaming now on,
It's streaming
It is.
now on PBS.
so you can watch it. Oh, hi, Alex.
Yeah, you can watch it on PBS. And of course it features, it's really about Codex, and they kind of threw some other people in there.
Well, it's really about Mark Sargianis.
Well, he goes to Codex. It's everybody from
Yeah.
Codex.
And I think Alex Christie wrote a nice review of it in the was that in the Economist?
Yes, you did. Thank you, Alex.
Yes, it was in the date book. Was it yesterday?
Yeah,
Yes.
yesterday's Chronicle has a couple of page article about it.
Okay, so grown men. We're about to go like mainstream. We're all gonna start like
Almost. Look
we're gonna
out.
start making like big money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get agents.
Dump Trump, up Codex.
You're not gonna be able to get Peter on the phone. It's gonna be horrible.
It's just too bad, this would have been the lead up for Codex that would have been in February, but of course we have to put it off at least for a year. But that would have just been the PR we wanted and needed, and
Yeah.
Gives a real boost to the fair.
I'm just going over. Oh, thank you. Yeah, many of the special collections libraries have online exhibits on their websites. At this point in our, I've asked a few special friends to join in and talk to us about some different aspects of Marie's career and her life. And I'm going to ask them to join us now. And we'll talk for about 5 minutes. So my first guest today, and I want to thank the three of them for joining us. We're going to be talking first to Charles Hobson. After that, we'll be talking to Donna Seager. And then after that, we'll be joined by Peter Koch. So if you don't all know, Charles Hobson is the proprietor of Pacific Editions, has been making books as long as I've known him, well over 30 years, maybe, Charles?
40.
40, what? So I was talking to Charles the other day, and he told me this great origin story about Marie that he's going to share with us.
So John was encouraging me to tell him about the exhibition, which we saw a couple of weeks ago. And that conversation brought back to me what I call my life in books, which really began with Marie Dern nearly 40 years ago. She became my mentor, teacher, comrade in the world of artist books. At the time this happened 40 years ago, roughly, I had a good friend who died, and I put together with some others a small memorial book of his essays, which was new territory for me. And when I told Marie about this and how it opened my eyes to the richness of books as a creative medium, she said, well, maybe you should take the class at UC Berkeley in the Bancroft Library taught by Wesley Tanner. The class was called The Historical Context of the Handmade Book, and it was taught in the seminar room at the Bancroft on Friday afternoons. And Marie called Wesley and got me in. So I was one of 6. Each class was 3 hours. And the first hour involved looking at the Bancroft's collection, beginning with the Carolingian manuscripts and then moving forward in time into the 20th century. I will say that one of the things I saw there was I actually held in my hand a page from the Gutenberg Bible. And it was, one of the lights going off moments of my life, that this page in my hand had been so critical in the whole intellectual life of the world, or our culture anyway. So in the last 2 hours of the class, the 6 of us handset type and printed a small book on the 1857 Albion hand press that was in the Bancroft's seminar room. I was so excited. When I thanked Marie for setting this up, she gave me the essential lesson that has guided me in my work for most of the last 4 decades. She said, "Make the book speak as a whole. Let all the elements of the book enhance the subject. How can the cover and the sewing and the paper and the images and the layout of type carry forward the story, poem, or narrative? It's not just putting words on a page." When Sandra and I saw the exhibit a few weeks ago, I was reminded how much I owe to her and her insights and what an extraordinary artist she was. Thank you, Marie. Oh, and I have a piece of, this is I get a lot of money for this on eBay.
I'm also reminded, Charles, of all the sort of camaraderie that we shared with Marie and Carl and you, and coming out for those of us that live in the urban squalor, being able to come out to this magical place of Stinson Beach, and many of you were at many of the social gatherings. I was out there like body surfing with Michael Burke and John McBride, out at those parties that we would have on the beach. And that to me was, the camaraderie and the community to me are some of the most important aspects of the artist book community that we have here. Playing croquet on the Hobson's lawn, hanging out on the terrace, eating pizza. Those things are equal, to me, those things make good books in the end. Those kind of connections. So thank you. Charles, thank you for that remembrance. That was really moving. I'm going to say hello to Donna Seager now. Hi, Donna.
Hi there, John. How are you?
Good. Donna, do you want to, for those of us who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. I have a contemporary art gallery that has a very strong specialty in artist books. And for 15 years, I have had a show called The Art of the Book. And that was very much inspired by Charles Hobson, who brought me to his house and showed me one after another of his collection of artist books. And I had what I like to call the museum feeling, that I knew this was rich. This was really rich, and that I wanted to dedicate a part of my gallery practice to books and to handmade books, all kinds of things books related. And it has been the best decision I ever made, and also one that brought me to Marie Dern. Charles gave me a list of so many of the great artists in the Bay Area, and I got in my car and I went to see them. And when I went to see Carl and Marie Dern, I remember saying to somebody afterwards, I just wish I could keep her in my pocket. She's just such a delight. And she became a very dear friend. And in the last years, we had a monthly dinner. We would meet for dinner once a month. And a lot of my best kept secrets went with her. But one of the things I remember when I was talking to you yesterday, I wanted to say is that Marie Dern believed that people need stories. She believed in stories and the telling of stories, and both her and Carl were magnificent at telling stories. And she kept a box outside of her house in Fairfax, and it was like free stories, and it had a little handmade sign on it, and any of her neighbors could come and just have a free story anytime they wanted. It was just so imaginative and fun, and with that kind of simplicity that has depth that Marie always exhibited. I had wished that I have a little recording that Marie gave me of her telling her stories about the hairdresser. And I so wish I could have managed to patch that in so we could just enjoy for one moment again that wonderful voice of hers, which was just so great, and that big smile and the way she was always happy to see you. Yeah.
Donna, I think one of the things that we also were talking about when we were talking yesterday was Marie's and her really incredible ability to collaborate with all these different kinds of artists, and how she was also
No doubt.
also able to make it very much her own work. And I think Charles is good at that as well.
Yeah.
This meeting.
And she wanted to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would complicate things.
Yeah. She's kind of irreplaceable, as was Carl, as both as a couple and as friends and as artists. Yeah.
Well, I would encourage you all to every year Donna does an amazing artist book show, and the artist books get, I think, sprinkled within your gallery year round. But every year Donna puts on this,
Yeah.
I believe it's called The Art of the Book.
Right, in May. This was my 15th anniversary. And at my 10th anniversary, I got to curate a show for the Brooklyn Public Library, which was a great honor for me, which I enjoyed very much. So I just feel lucky to be on the edge of this community that you guys have, because it's Brooklyn Public Library, right?
Yeah. I would say you're kind of in the swirling center, Donna. Au contraire.
Donna, you were also the curator at the Sun Valley Writers Conference, so they're interested.
That's right. Yeah, for the last 3 years, although this year I didn't get to go, but that has been an amazing privilege. I enjoy that so much.
Yeah. Go that.
Well, my heartfelt thanks and congratulations on representing all these book artists for so many years. That's kind of rare. Not that many art dealers have dedicated that much dedication to the actual artist book itself. Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, I like showing them in a contemporary gallery setting, and I would really love for book artists to have the same kind of name recognition that other artists have in the world, like beyond their own community. I think everyone should know these people and the wonderful work that they do.
Well, after everybody watches that documentary, it might happen.
That's good.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, John.
All right. And lastly, but not leastly, I'm going to bring up Peter Koch. Hey, Peter.
Hey, thank you,
And
John.
I was hoping Peter and his wife Susan, who was there in the background for a
I'm
little bit
here.
there, are the
I'm here.
founders of the Codex Foundation, who are also the two people maybe responsible more, as much as Donna or Charles or anyone else, as valorizing this Bay Area book art scene we have. And Peter and Susan have really brought the world of handmade books to us here by holding this amazing book fair that Marie Dern was, I think, involved with pretty much from the get-go, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, Marie came to the first, and Carl came to the
Carl.
first fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, my relationship with Marie really has an imaginary aspect. She told me of the yarn of her coming from Salt Lake City to San Francisco in their Volkswagen bus. And am I coming through okay?
Yep.
Okay, there. And I've never lost sight of that crossing of the Great Basin, the big desert. I'm also from the other side of the Great Basin, and I also had to make that crossing. And I did it in the largest U-Haul truck that money can buy, but they did it in a Volkswagen, the other end of the spectrum. And but I was, of course, bringing my printing presses and my dog and my wife and my son with me. But anyway, Marie would tell me about the story of her arriving in San Francisco you know, and if I dare say, escaping the clutches of a very tenacious culture that she was born in to and didn't want to participate in fully. And so we met and we more or less bonded over our Western America, our Rocky Mountain thing that those of us who are from, like you too, John, are from the Rockies. We bonded over that. After, I would like to also say that, to chime in and say with you that those moments of sitting on the deck and drinking a beer or what have you out there and on the Stinson Beach they were healing moments. You know, there are some nasty critters out there in the world, and you know, you always know that, you know, Marie would give you a helping hand and smile. Right, and we could, you know, and oh man, I mean, I could come in and I have, like anybody born on the 15th of November, I'm 77 tomorrow, by the way. Anyone born on the 15th of November, you know, shares with all the other Scorpios, you know, a lot of problems that come with it. And one of them is enemies. And, you know, I mean, you know, you see a scorpion, you want to step on it, right? Face it, you know. So anyway, I've got a few of those guys. I could go to Marie, and it turns out that she and I shared the same enemies. That was an interesting situation. I mean, not only our current president, but some other characters. Anyway, I really loved my relationship with her for that reason. And Charles, I wanted to mention that probably one of the most fantastic experiences in my entire life, although it wasn't short, it was long. It was my 20 years of teaching that class that you took with Wesley. And so for 20 years, I was every Friday afternoon, I would pull the finest books in the Bancroft Library and play with them. Boy, that was fun. I mean, you know, and people would often ask me why in the hell I would ever leave any place as fantastic as Montana. With the, you know, a lot of people have interesting ideas about what Montana really is like. And, you know, by the time I was 35, I just had to have my hands on those books. And the first and only place I could really lay my hands on them readily was the San Francisco Public Library. And I remember my first day in the San Francisco Public Library, first day, and there was Georgiana Greenwood sitting in there looking at something. And there was the librarian, was that she was a recent PhD in the history of printing and publishing from UC Berkeley. And was she wrote about Gutenberg a lot, published a book about Gutenberg. Anyway, I'm walking in from Missoula, Montana, and she starts pulling these books off the shelves and handing them to me. And in the middle of it, I was so overwhelmed that I almost passed out. I mean, I literally had been down on my hands and knees, you know, crawling in the bookshelves of the Grabhorn collection. I was starting to pass out. And the dear thing, she ran in the other room and brought me tea, you know, and sat me down. And I mean, these are the kind of experiences that created my life in the books here in San Francisco. And I also, you know, wanted to mention that one of the places in which Marie and I coincided a lot was on the ideas of man's relationship to nature. She really understood what it's like to live close to nature, and that was the focus of our Extraction Art on the Edge of the Abyss project that we've been working on for the past 3 years, and which is about to come to fruition in 2021. And for those of you who may or may not know about it, if you were to go to codexfoundation.org, you'll see a link to the Extraction Art project, which has legs that are maybe as big or bigger than Codex itself. We now have over 50 museums and galleries around the world participating in our exhibition. And we hope that it will go beyond 2021.
Of course, it includes.
And what?
It includes the San Francisco Public Library. the
Oh,
Center for the
oh yeah,
Blind.
San Francisco Public Library is participating, and Donna Seager Gallery is certainly, yay, Donna is participating, and Missoula Music, not for all of you Missoula people, you know, the great Missoula Art Museum and many others like that, the Holter Art Museum in Helena. I recommend that you all spend next summer in Montana, and I'll see you there. Okay?
I'm sure Marie Dern will be,
Yeah, okay, Alex, I'll see you there.
and I'm sure Marie will be sending us the good vibes from wherever she is, and
Yes.
Hale Hardy, all the Hale and Hardy support. Thank you, Peter and Donna and Charles, for helping us sort of round out our. All of us had such a wonderful, positive experience with Marie. Most of you were much longer than I did, but yeah, and I concur. Like that sense of community that we got from Marie and Carl was profoundly important to me in terms of being part of a community, and again, I think it really helped the work. I'm gonna take a 2-minute break. You all know why. I'm gonna take a pause for the cause. Maybe you could open up the chat, or you could like unmute everybody for a second, Emil, so you all can like chat. And then I'm gonna show you some movies. I'll be right back. You still have the host, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. You can all talk about me while I'm gone.
So feel free to unmute yourselves or ask questions in the chat, and I will make
You ought
sure.
to talk about John while he's gone, that's for sure.
We should talk about John for sure.
So, yeah. So, you know, it's great to have him doing this kind of work with the video stuff. I mean, it's so genuine and wonderful. In this world of Zoom, you don't get that kind of special friendly flavor that you do from him.
This is Jennifer from Bolinas Museum speaking, and I want to just thank everyone for joining us today for this very special event. And we are so grateful that you've all come together, and I concur with you, Charles. It's nice to have this warm, friendly, and sincere experience with you all in real time, and it makes a difference. And Amelia, thanks for your expert guidance, and we hope that we can continue to grow this special community of friends, inspired by Marie and her amazing life, and honor that here at the Bolinas Museum.
Well, yeah.
We have Harriet Cosman, who is heavily involved with the creative world here in Bolinas, and an amazing educator who's taught for so many years, so many wonderful creative minds here in Bolinas and Stinson. And Harriet, do you have any book stories you'd like to share?
You have to unmute.
I met Marie when I was very good friends with Arthur and Kitty, and was lucky enough to spend some time with her. And I just remember just this wonderful, wonderful woman who was giddy and silly, and up until the end. And I just cherish the memories of her. And I once had a big birthday party in Bolinas that was all the women that I knew. And we had a tea up at Kitty's, and Marie couldn't come until the last minute when everybody was gone. And so we wound up taking this picture of her and adding her into this picture of all the women at the party. And she was so delighted, and she was so delightful. And so you know, my memory of her was just to be cherished. And I love this presentation today. Thank you.
Harriet. I think everyone who knew Marie might agree that perhaps her middle name should have been Delightful.
Yeah.
Amelia,
Yes.
I don't know how to go to the chat, so can I ask you instead?
Yes.
Can I say something quickly about Marie?
Please.
Go for it.
John,
Introduce
It's
yourself,
very-
please. Sir, could you introduce yourself?
yes, my name is Dominic Riley. John DeMerritt's second best friend. I work weirdly. I lived in Berkeley for a long time and still live there part of the year, as some of you know. And I got to work with Marie on one project. Can't remember what it was called. And I don't know why I got to work with her. I think maybe John was unavailable that week. So I found a little book for her, and she came over, and Michael had just had an argument and he'd gone off for a walk. Marie came round, she said, "Where's Michael?" And I said, "Oh, Marie, we've just had a row and he's gone off for a walk." And she said, "Oh, that happens." And I said, "You've been together with Carl a long time." She said, "Yeah, nearly 40 years. I said, "Well, what's your secret?" And she said, "Oh, it's simple. Carl and I never stop fighting."
Poor.
And then about a year later, she was doing,
Yeah.
she and Carl were doing a joint presentation at the Colophon Club. So if you don't know the Colophon Club is an after dinner club that meets in San Francisco or Berkeley. And we have sometimes a good dinner, sometimes a mediocre dinner. And then we have a speaker who might be a bookbinder, a book artist, a calligrapher, whatever. It's the whole art of the book. And it was their turn to present. And I think at some
All
point,
the officers are here.
what do you say?
You better be careful. All the officers are here.
Yes, I know. And at some point, Marie called me and said, "You're going to have to introduce us." And I think it's because at that point, Peter Koch either didn't want to do it or was away or something. I don't know, Peter, maybe he had a cold. And I apparently was vice president. I didn't realize this. Somebody told me I was. So I introduced them and I said, "Marie, if I introduce you, can I put some fictional stuff, you know, just to make it fun?" And she said, "Oh yeah, put in whatever you like, but show it to me first." So I wrote and introduced her and I said, "I first met Marie Dern in 1976 in Vienna," which of course is impossible because I was only 10 years old, where I was a semi-finalist for the British team at the International Mirror Writing Competition, where Marie Dern was one of the international judges because being a letterpress printer, she was expert in reading things backwards. And she said, "I love that." She said, "Don't tell Carl. I want it to be a surprise." So we didn't tell Carl. And I said, so I read the rest. And I said, "Marie and Carl are childhood sweethearts from Salt Lake City. They are collaborators. They are joint artists. They are parents. They are sweethearts and they are lovers." And she said, "I don't want you to put that in." I said, "Why not?" She said, "I don't want anybody while I'm talking to picture me and Carl screwing." Anyway, at the end of the talk, this has happened a lot. Somebody came up and said to Marie, "What's the thing with the mirror writing competition in Vienna?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know. It was so long ago." And Carl said, "I remember it." And she said, "Shut up, Carl," or something like that. It was the best fun we've ever had because she wanted us to have fun. I think fearing that an evening of talking about your work might be too boring for people, which it never is. Anyway, that's enough of me. Thank you, John, for that. Oh, last thing.
Thank you, John.
When Carl died, if you remember, Michael and I couldn't be there because we were flying out. So we visited Marie the day before his memorial and saw his little box that he'd made with his ashes in them, which is incredible. And this is the last thing she said. How do you, is there anything you want us to do, contribute to, right? And she said, yeah, Carl had one wish, which is to remember him, please buy a piece of local art. Do you remember that? So that's what we both did. It was a beautiful way to remember them.
Mm, mm.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Carl and
sharing.
Marie,
Thank you, John, and thanks everyone.
Just one sort of anecdote about Carl. I remember he could do a great answering machine. He would call up and he would answer the phone and he'd go, hello. And then he would like leave a message at the beep. And he could do it. And then you would start to leave a message and he would start laughing at you.
John, what about when Marie and Carl started doing voiceover work?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What was that about?
I don't know much about the details of that, but I remember when they did like an ad for Wells Fargo.
I think they liked the contrast between their two voices.
Oh yeah, it was, and anyone who ever listened to them talk, you could just listen to them. There was no other voice like those two.
Right.
And again, going back to the work, it was all about puns and jokes and, verbal gymnastics. That was part of their everyday life. And it was also intertwined with the work they did. And especially with a lot of the humor. I think you see a lot of that kind of humor in, like Richard Shaw's work. I think it's sometimes like that too. Alice Shaw's work is certainly like that. Richard and
One thing, she taught at the Art Institute, but she had also been willing to have me take my classes from the Art Institute to her studio in Fairfax and sometimes in Fairfax all the time. But the thing that one little part of it, the students would all be standing around her press, and she would be talking about she was setting type, and she was talking about visiting schools and talking to them about setting type. And then she would show you some pages, and she says, now with pages, you have to put them together and then whack them hard on the edge of the table to get them all straight. And that's called knocking up. And she says, when I go to 8th grade classes and tell them about this, everybody breaks into laughter. So she was always alert to these kinds of pun-like situations where she could get a laugh.
Yeah, very much so.
Can I say something, John?
Sure, hi, Kathy.
Hi. So Marie and I met at the Mills. I was in the first class and she came along after 6 months, and that's where we cemented our relationship. Kathleen Burch was there too.
As well. Huh?
Yeah, and
that would be great if you could talk a little bit about that, because that's a part of her life I don't know that as much.
Well, it was just, it was really a wonderful program. She went in at the printing end and I went in at the academic end and ended up in the printing end. It was just a wonderful program. Kathy Walkup, of course, was in charge of it and still is its leader. And we just struck up a wonderful friendship that lasted so many years. And every 2 or 3 weeks, we'd talk on the phone, and we always spoke with some kind of an accent. It was, hello, how are you? And then she would respond in the same way. And that was just Marie. And we would continue along for some time. And it was my uplifting laugh, for my 2-week laugh, and talking about all sorts of things. And I remember bringing my granddaughter when she was maybe 12. She loved Marie and Carl because she used to come to the center and make books during the day when she could. And they gave her a studio tour as if she were an adult. Carl took her all over the studio, and then Marie showed her the press. And it was just, they were just two wonderful, funny people. And so I felt really lucky to have met her. And we had a very short-lived imprint called Cheek Editions. And we did one book. It was something of mine. And I remember one day when I was printing with her about something else, she said to me, I was being my usual, very careful, overly concerned self. And she said, oh, for God's sakes, it's just ink and paper. What's the big deal? So that was Marie and I really miss her. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
She was a great icebreaker.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So, and Kathleen, you were at Mills at the same time as Marie as well.
The rest of you, Kathleen.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was kind of remembering was, I think there was a day when we had, and Kathy Barr might remember or not, but I think the evening seminar, I think we were supposed to have show and tell. And I think Marie brought as show and tell, she brought the artist Richard Shaw for show and tell. And Kathy, is that my recollection, or
I don't remember that, but it sounds like something she might well do. The other thing, oh, go ahead.
And he told, if it was Richard or somebody else from the Bolinas West Marin gang, he told a lot of wonderful stories out of school about all the West Marin artists, and it was one of those great evenings.
I don't know if anybody either has ever seen the 6-foot book she did that was her Mills project. Do you remember that, Kathleen?
Well,
And
I
it
worked
was
on
at the center.
Extensively. So I had the type shop, and so they needed type for it that they were going to blow up rather largely. But I provided all the type, and I think she traded me a week at the beach house for the type, which was probably the best pay I've ever gotten for type since then. That was a great week.
Yeah.
That book is on view here in the exhibition. So when you come out for a visit, you'll be able to.
Oh, good. That's great. It's fabulous. And she gave out 12 copies, miniature copies. I think 12 of them. I have one of the book to 12 of us to make some sort of adjustment. And she had those along with the show of the big book at Mills. So it was really fun. You could walk right into it. It's so big, so I hope you get to see it.
That was a huge amount of Reeves BFK.
I'm really enjoying hearing about these lifelong friendships that Marie and Carl nurtured. Bringing up Richard Shaw, that reminds me, one of the last times I saw Marie was at the reception for Richard and Martha and Alice and Virgil Shaw's exhibition at Gallery 16 last year. So that's how long that's the arc of those relationships is really powerful. I'm so much enjoying all this. I know I'm supposed to show you some videos, but I'm just enjoying very much this chat that happened while I went to the bathroom. I got to keep that one in the back pocket.
Wait a minute, let's just keep chatting. Give me some more chat.
I like the chat.
Yeah. I mean, since we can't sit around and have a drink together unless you're being super brave. Yeah. And here I am saying, and I have nothing to chat about. Oh, I have some gossip. Do I? No, not really.
Marie liked a bit of gossip. Marie always told me that she didn't like gossip, but
yeah,
it's debatable. Since I did promise you all, and since not all of you here are part of our little circle, I am gonna show you what I promised, and I'm going to show you, for those of you that are not part of our incestuous little world, I'm going to show you a few videos that I've prepared. Yeah, we do tend to get all self-absorbed with ourselves, which is great. But for those of you who are looking for entrees and maybe a little inspiration about maybe making your own books, I'm going to show you a few short videos, and then with that, it'll only take about 10 minutes.
Okay, you guys, I'm going to say goodbye then. Now,
okay, Peter.
I have another meeting. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday, Peter.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, happy birthday, Scorpio. Step on some scorpions. And so after we're done with that, we can open up for conversation again. Everybody ready? Here comes the tutorial part of the day. Last quarter, just before the pandemic hit, I got hired to teach a bookmaking class at UC Santa Cruz. So, and about a week before class kicked online. So I'm going to show you a few of the tutorial videos that I made for my students Maybe they will, some of you, this will be like kind of rote old hat, but that's okay. I like rote and old hat. So I'm going to show you a few simple structures that if you want to make your own books that you might want to try. If there's any more information, and we might, maybe I'll talk to Elia and Jennifer about maybe there's a way we could post some of these online. I'd be more than happy to share, or you can always get in touch with the museum and they can put you in touch with me if you want to see some of them. Okay, here we go. The book form. Can everybody see a video on your screen? Amelia? Kathy, can you see a video? Can you see a video? Is there a video playing on your screen?
Well, I see a cursor and kind of a blank white rectangle.
That's what I see.
Let's try it again.
Start it playing before you share your screen.
Yeah.
Or
thank you. Let's try it again.
Here we go.
Can you all see a video playing on your screen now? Yes?
Yes.
This is the most basic kind of book you can make, and it shows you the basic sort of components of a book, starting off with what's called a piece of paper. When you take a piece of paper and that arrow is a grain direction, that's where it bends easier. If you fold that piece of paper in half, you end up with this magical thing called a folio. A folio has 4 printable sides. I've conveniently numbered them for you. You now have the beginning components of a Western style, what we call a Codex book. If you take a bunch of those pieces of paper, let's say, for instance, you take 4 of them. Yeah, that's right, 4. And if you fold those in half, and you take the most basic bookbinding tool there is, which is called a bone folder. It's a burnishing tool. It's basically an extension of your finger. You magically now have a book. That's how simple and complex it is. We took 4 pieces of paper, folded them into 4 4-page sections. We nested those all together, and now we have a 16-page section. I'm going to take this little awl that I've got there. I'm going to stab some holes through the fold. Three holes, odd number. I'm going to take some beautiful linen thread from Ireland. I'm going to thread it onto a big fat needle that's blunted on the end. It's a needle that comes out of the sort of saddlery industry. Bookbinding is not as big as other industries, so we basically are like magpies. We steal tools from all other industries. I'm going to sew through those, starting from the outside. You could start from the inside too. Starting from the outside, I'm going to sew through those folds. We used to have a big sign on the first bindery I worked at. It said, "Don't bleed on the work." I only did it once. Oh, it was actually, I bled on a Sam Francis book, who was also a West Marine. I never said anything about it. But right in the middle of a big Sam Francis spread. So I've ended up where I started, and I'm gonna tie a square knot that's gonna bring that whole book together. Just like that, 4 minutes later, you have what we call a pamphlet binding. It's the most rudimentary, sort of simple. If any of you, if you ever go to like the San Francisco Artist Book Fair and you look at zines and stuff, they're all made this way. Sometimes they're staples, but this is something, you could take some of your computer printer paper and you could get there. You could have this magical object that has a recto and a verso, a right and a left, and you have this thing called a spread, and where two sort of mirroring sides of pieces of paper relate to each other. It is this gathering place where so many things that can happen inside of a book, and this is the beginning origins of that. I'll show you a couple more. Does anyone see a green piece of paper on a folding mat on my, is my screen sharing?
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, it is. Many of you, this is another kind of book that many artist books are interested in. It's called an accordion fold book. It has been popularized and valorized by this amazing artist that you should all familiarize yourself with, named Claire Van Vliet. I'm sorry, Amelia, I'm blanking. Art of the Fold. Author of Art of the Fold.
Heidi Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you, Dominic. I'm sorry, Claire also does a lot of structural stuff like this. But this is a book, if any of you are interested in these kind of structures, which I've of late become very interested in, these very simple forms that are based on historical structures. Heidi Kyle's The Art of the Fold is an amazing book to start with, and this is straight out of that.
Don, I'm just seeing a still and not a video. Is anybody else just seeing a still?
Yeah, just still.
I beg your pardon.
There's still nothing happening.
Let's try it again.
Just a red piece of paper.
Yeah, me too.
It takes a village.
This has happened to me so many times before. I don't even really get embarrassed about it anymore. But my video playing now?
Yes.
Yes. Again, the most simple rudimentary, it's just deceptively simple, but these are the basic building blocks of text blocks. And, you know, the accordion book is great because you can get this kind of sequential, what you might want to describe as a cinematic sort of way to sequence work. It also has incredible like display potential. I have that Band-Aid on so I don't bleed on the work. Magic ink. Since it seems like I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty sharing some of my videos, maybe I'll stop the video part right there and we can go back to chatting a little bit. And maybe we can find a way for me to post those all for you at your, does that sound like a plan? Let's try that. Do we want to open up you want to unmute everyone? Co-host there?
Thank you.
That sounds great, John. We can figure out how to apply those to our YouTube channel at Bolinas Museum.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, maybe that's a better way to.
If that's, yeah, we can try that. And we also just note that I hope to be able to put this recording of this event on our YouTube channel as well. And we'll share it far and wide.
Perfect.
When we can.
Thank you. Okay, I handed it back to you, Amelia.
Okay.
Want to unmute everybody? Before we've still got a few minutes left in our allotted time. I don't know if anyone else has anything else they'd like to share about Marie. I know other people here were very close to her. Tom Ingalls might have something to say. Hi, Tom.
Am I on?
Yeah. Tom, can you hold up your type for us again before you?
What am I holding up?
Hold up your so we can see your lettering for us.
Oh, there. Is that close? Can you see?
Can you hold it a little closer?
We're seeing you, John. Oh, there we go.
There we go. I just do this for because I teach on Zoom, and so I do it so the people in Asia know what day it is or what class it is. Since it's what time is it? Oh, it's in the middle of the night in Suzhou, which is where one of my students live, the silk capital of China. Anyway, just a quick story that we didn't really touch on it, but I met down the street from Marie's studio was Ed Brown, the writer and author of the Tassajara cookbook, but also a very famous Zen teacher, and was Marie's Zen teacher and my first Zen teacher. And so I met Marie at one of Ed's picnics. And then soon after, she of course invited me down, walked down the street to her studio, and I got to know her and Carl. But I didn't really spend a lot of time with them except at retreats where we weren't allowed to talk. So, but one year, I think it was 2009, I did a 1 week retreat at Tassajara with Ed Brown, a cooking, it was called How to Cook Your Life. And Carl and Marie were there, and that's when I really got to know them. And I, changed my life. And I couldn't find it, but I will put it up or get it to everybody, the picture. There's a little bridge at Tassajara that goes over the creek. And if you sit there, you get to see everybody because there's only two places to go. One to your cabin, and the other is to the dining hall or to the hot baths. So you basically, if you sit there, it's kind of like Times Square, but it's very cool. And I remember one evening after dinner, everyone would just go and sit before the evening meditation or the Dharma talk. And anyway, I just, Marie was always so kind to me. And I'll end it with, and she gave me for my ordination at Zen Center, she gave me a copy of this book that John showed, Miracles. And in the back, in the colophon, it says that I love, she says the books were bound by Martha Shaw and Marie C. Dern. We are still friends. So anyway, I think that's kind of with her humor and the fact that we are all miracles too. So thank you.
Great, thank you for sharing that.
Well, how many of you remember the story of how Carl and Marie met?
Little bit, but go on.
Well, the first time they met, Marie was 8 years old and she had run away from home. And she decided to camp in the vacant lot next to Carl's house, where Carl was about 12 years old. And Carl looked down and saw this kid in the vacant lot attempting to build a fire and cook a hot dog. And so he told his dad, he told on her, he snitched. And so Carl's dad went down and kind of captured Marie and got her back home. So that was the first time they ever met. Not too auspicious, but then the second time they met, Marie had been in Paris for a year, I guess a junior year abroad, and she came back to Salt Lake City. And she ran into Carl, not physically, but she was stopped one day at a stoplight in a convertible car, and she was just back from Paris. She was wearing a white midi shirt and black lipstick, and Carl thought she was the end of the road for him. So that was it. So those are the two stories that I remember.
That's great.
Not so much the end of the road as the beginning of the road.
Exactly.
Well said.
Hello.
Another story out there.
Oh, can you hear me, Amelia?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I've remembered something else. John mentioned the picnics, the PCBA picnics, because Marie was very much involved in PCBA, of course. And we were there one time, and they had a hot tub, and we went in the hot tub. And I said, do we need to, I didn't bring my swimming trunks. And she said, oh, you can just go in. We all used to go in. She said, in the 70s, now I don't remember the 70s. She said, we used to have these things called encounter groups. So what was that? I said, well, we used to get around. I mean, Tom briefly alluded to it. We used to sit around and do these things. And there were nude encounter groups, to free your inhibition. Said, what were they like? She said, they were awful. So that was nice. And then on
So it was like this, but naked.
Oh, she said it was terrible. Everybody was naked. It was awful. On another occasion, we were there at the picnic, and we're miles from anywhere. I mean, where is Stinson? It's in the middle of nowhere. You can't go to the shop.
It's on the edge of nowhere.
And I said, oh, nobody smokes. I've got no cigarettes. She said, oh, Carl's got some cigarettes in that drawer there. They're Galois. I said, why have you got cigarettes? And she said, well, we've just come back from Paris. I love that. We're in Paris. We'll smoke.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
John, do you have anything further you'd like to share? Or did he disappear on us again?
He got kicked off, but it looks like he's back on. John, are you there?
To the Bolinas Museum again, to Elia and Jennifer for hosting us all as book weirdos today, so that we could. I was hoping we could use today as a problem that we have in these moments when people pass away is it's very hard to find some kind of closure. And I was sort of hoping today's event would help us do that for some of us or all of us. So thank you, Bolinas Museum. And I can't wait to get out and see the exhibition. And I hope everyone else gets a chance to see it as well.
Please come see. If by chance there is a day that's better than another outside of our business hours, for those of you who were very close friends with Marie, please call us and let us know. The number is 415-868-0330, and we'll see what we can do.
Great.
So be safe, everyone. Thank you so very much, John, for putting all your time and care in this special event and bringing all these remarkable people together to celebrate the wonder of handmade books and, of course, the ever delightful Marie Dern.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.